The battlefield stretched across the endless void, filled with thousands of alien warships. Bright stars burned in the distance, but their light could not hide the shadows of fleets waiting for war. Every empire had come. Massive cruisers from the Zorith Dominion lined one side, their hulls glowing with red energy. The insect-like ships of the Kryvax swarm floated in clusters, wings folded, their living hulls pulsing. Even the cold machines of the Valen Collective had sent their metal fleets, silent and merciless. The air of the void was thick with tension. Everyone was ready to strike, everyone waiting for a signal. But before any weapon could fire, silence fell. The kind of silence that made entire fleets stop breathing. All across the battlefield, alien eyes turned toward the far edge of space. Something was coming. Something that should not have been there. Slowly, a dark shape emerged from the void. It was not like the ships of the Zorith, not like the swarming Kryvax, not like the endless machines of the Valen. It was something else, something unknown to most of the galaxy. The commanders leaned forward in their thrones, their advisors froze in disbelief. A single warship had arrived, and it was human. No one spoke. No one dared to move. The galaxy stared as the human warship entered the battlefield. Its design was simple, nothing like the beautiful curves of alien vessels. Its armor was gray, heavy, and full of scars from past battles. It looked ancient, almost primitive. Yet the way it moved, calm and steady, made it feel unstoppable. It did not rush, it did not panic. It simply entered as if it owned the battlefield. The alien fleets whispered through comms. Humans. Here. Impossible. They do not come this far. The Kryvax swarm hissed in confusion, their wings trembling. The Zorith generals growled with anger, calling it an insult that a single human ship dared to face their combined fleets. But the Valen machines remained silent, their endless sensors trying and failing to measure the strange energy hidden deep inside the warship. For centuries, the galaxy had believed humanity weak, far away, isolated on the edges of space. They fought among themselves, yes, but never joined the wars of the great empires. Humans were considered latecomers, noisy but harmless, creatures with fire in their eyes but small tools in their hands. That was the story told to young alien children, the story repeated by commanders and kings. But as the human warship glided forward, no one believed that story anymore. Still, the galaxy watched in silence. The ship did not open fire. Its weapons stayed cold. Its engines burned soft blue light, carrying it closer, step by step, deeper into the void where fleets had gathered to kill each other. Some believed it had come to surrender. Others thought it was a mistake, a lost traveler. But in their hearts, every commander felt the same fear. This was not a mistake. This was a warning. Inside the alien flagships, arguments broke out. "Destroy it before it acts," shouted one Zorith general. "Wait, we must study it first," said a scientist from another empire. "Do you not feel it?" "That silence is not natural," whispered an old Kryvax elder, his antenna shaking. The Valen machines spoke in cold metallic voices, analysis incomplete. Probability of survival against unknown weapon systems, low. The fleets hesitated. No empire wanted to be the first to fire. If the warship was weak, then striking it would be easy. But if it was strong, stronger than anything they had ever faced, then the first to attack would also be the first to die. The human ship kept moving. Its surface glowed faintly, strange markings along the hull flickering like fireflies. Some said it was damage. Others said it was writing, human words carved into metal. But no one could read them, and the mystery only deepened. And then something happened that shook the fleets even more. The warship stopped. It did not aim its cannons. It did not prepare its missiles. It simply stood still in the center of the battlefield, as if daring the galaxy to make the first move. Silence grew heavier, pressing down on every alien warrior's chest. Even the stars seemed to dim. Across the galaxy, countless watchers tuned in. Civilians, soldiers, rulers, all stared at the endless screens showing the battlefield. Billions of eyes were locked on one ship. One human ship. Stories from the past returned to the minds of many. Stories of human stubbornness, of wars fought against impossible odds, of victories won when defeat was certain. Tales told in secret corners, dismissed by leaders as myths. But myths had weight now, because the warship was real, standing before them all. Still, no human voice spoke. The ship gave no message, no demand, no threat. And yet its silence was louder than thunder. For the first time in centuries, the great empires did not fight. For the first time, fear spread across fleets that thought themselves invincible. And for the first time, the galaxy realized it was staring at something that would change everything. A single human warship had entered the void, and nothing would ever be the same again. Long before the human warship entered the void, there had been whispers across the galaxy, old tales buried in the archives of forgotten worlds. Some spoke of strange battles on the edges of known space, where human ships had appeared and vanished like shadows, leaving wreckage behind with no survivors to tell the full story. Others recalled warnings from ancient elders, voices dismissed as madness or fear. They said that humanity should never be underestimated, that their silence was not weakness but patience, and that if ever they came to the galactic center, the stars themselves would tremble. Most empires had laughed at these stories. The Zorith Dominion called them lies spread by defeated races. The Kryvax swarm hissed and mocked, saying humans were only prey, too fragile to matter. The Valen machines dismissed the tales as corrupted data, lacking proof or logic. Even the Council of Worlds, the gathering of the largest empires, once read a scroll from an old seer who warned of metal beasts with human hearts, carrying storms within. They laughed in their chambers, tore the scroll apart, and silenced the old seer forever. But now, as the human warship stood in the void, those warnings returned like ghosts, haunting every commander's mind. The alien leaders tried to hide their fear behind pride, but their fleets could feel it. Soldiers and drones whispered to one another, asking questions no one dared answer. Could the stories be true? Had the galaxy been blind all this time? Inside one of the Kryvax living ships, a young warrior remembered a tale told by his grandmother. She had spoken of humans who fought against a swarm on the edge of darkness, who burned themselves alive just to stop the advance. He never believed her, yet as he watched the human warship float calmly among thousands of enemies, her words returned with sharp clarity. In the Valen flagship, machines searched through endless data archives, replaying old signals that had been dismissed for centuries. They found strange records of small human fleets destroying enemies 10 times larger. Each time the files were marked as false or error, but the evidence refused to vanish. Even machines, built on logic, began to wonder if they had made a mistake. Meanwhile, the Zorith Dominion burned with anger. To them, the human warship was not a legend, not a ghost, but an insult. Their generals recalled old battles where Zorith soldiers had faced humans directly and lost ground. Those defeats had been hidden, erased from official history, but among the veterans, the memory remained. They remembered humans who would rather die than retreat, humans who used simple weapons in clever ways, humans who turned weakness into strength. The galaxy had ignored those veterans, treating them as fools. Now, their voices echoed in every Zorith commander's mind. On distant planets far from the battlefield, civilians tuned in to the transmissions. They saw the human ship, scarred but strong, silent but unshaken. Fear spread like wildfire. Markets collapsed, leaders argued, and people prayed to their gods, begging that the humans would not look their way. Even the smugglers and pirates who roamed the space lanes stopped their ships, staring at the holoscreens with wide eyes. Some whispered, "The legends were true." Others muttered, "The end has come." And still the warship gave no answer, only waiting in silence. Then the oldest of the Kryvax swarm elders spoke on a private channel that linked several empires. His voice was weak, trembling like dry leaves, but his words cut deep. "I warned you," he said. "I told you the humans were not to be mocked. You laughed at me, but now they are here." The line went silent. No one had the courage to reply. In their hearts, they all knew he was right. The forgotten warnings had not been lies. They had been truth. hidden by arrogance. And that truth was now standing before them in the void. The galaxy had laughed. The galaxy had dismissed. But the galaxy would laugh no more. The human warship was here, and the silence it carried was heavier than any weapon. The battlefield was still locked in silence, every alien fleet watching the human warship with fear and confusion, when suddenly the unexpected happened. For hours the ship had moved without a word, its heavy gray armor glowing faintly under the light of distant stars. But now a pulse of energy spread from its hull, a deep vibration that rippled through the void like the beating of a giant heart. Alien sensors flared with alarms, captains shouted at their crews, commanders demanded answers. Was this an attack? Was this the beginning of the end? Yet no weapons fired, no cannons glowed, no missiles launched. Instead the pulse carried a message. A single signal, old and strange, moving through channels no one had used in centuries. The aliens scrambled to decode it, their translators working desperately, but the language was unfamiliar, jagged and rough compared to the smooth tones of galactic speech. At first they thought it was broken noise, but then the patterns grew clear, the rhythm sharp, each line carved with intention. The Valen machines were the first to catch fragments. Their processors translated slowly, one word at a time, and when the message took shape even their cold voices wavered. The signal spoke in human tongue, and its meaning chilled the blood of every empire. We are only here once. Choose wisely. That was all. No threat. No promise. Only those 6 words, repeated again and again until the void itself seemed to echo them. The alien fleets froze. The Kryvax swarm hissed nervously, their wings trembling. The Zorith generals roared with confusion, demanding to know what it meant. The Valen machines clicked through probabilities but offered no certainty. Some believed it was a warning, one chance to surrender or be destroyed. Others whispered that it was a promise. The humans would not return again, and this moment was their only chance to survive. No one knew for sure, and that uncertainty was worse than any clear threat. Across the galaxy, civilians listening to the signal felt their hearts pound. On distant worlds, in markets and stations, people stopped what they were doing just to hear the words. We are only here once. Choose wisely. Children asked their parents what it meant. The parents had no answer. Even the priests and seers who claimed to know the will of the stars could not explain the human message. Silence spread again, but now it was heavier, filled with fear. Some alien commanders argued to fire immediately, to destroy the warship before its words became action. They mock us, shouted a Zorith warlord, his voice breaking through comms. They think they can frighten us with riddles. We should burn them where they stand. Others disagreed. The Kryvax elder who had once warned the council spoke again, his voice shaking. Do not attack. Do not test them. If they have come this far, it is because they know something we do not. That message is not for us to laugh at. It is for us to fear. The Valen collective split in their thoughts. Half of their machine minds argued that probability of human weakness was high, that the warship could be a bluff. But the other half calculated the unknown variables. The strange energy, the silent confidence, the fact that humans had appeared in the most dangerous place in the galaxy without hesitation. Unknown variables meant danger. And machines feared danger more than anything. Meanwhile, the human ship stopped sending the signal. Once was enough. The void returned to stillness, yet those 6 words lingered in every mind. The alien fleets stared at the warship, their claws on triggers, their cannons locked, but no one dared to fire. Because deep down, they all felt the same thing. The humans had not come begging for peace, and they had not come demanding war. They had come to test the galaxy itself. To see who would act, who would break the silence, who would choose wisely. And so, for the first time in history, the greatest fleets of the galaxy stood frozen by a single ship, a single voice, and a single message that cut through pride, arrogance, and certainty. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see who would make the first move, knowing that whatever happened next would be written in fire across the stars. The silence after the human message was unbearable, a heavy weight pressing on every fleet across the battlefield, and for a time no one moved, No one fired, no one even spoke above a whisper. But silence never lasts among the empires, and soon pride rose stronger than fear. The Zorith Dominion, known for arrogance and endless hunger for war, could not accept being mocked by a single human warship. In the flagship of the Zorith Armada, General Koroth struck the armrest of his command throne, his scaled fist cracking the metal. His voice boomed across the fleet channel, full of rage. They dare send us riddles? They dare stand against us with only one ship? Enough. We will show them the cost of insulting the Dominion. His advisors begged caution, reminding him of the strange energy readings, the scars on the human ship that looked more like marks of survival than weakness. But Koroth silenced them with a glare, his pride too swollen to hear reason. The galaxy watches, he said. If we cower before this primitive ship, the Dominion will be shamed forever. Fire on them now. Let the stars know who rules the void. Across his fleet, thousands of Zorith cannons hummed to life. Red lights burned along their hulls, engines roared, weapons charged. Other empires gasped in shock, some warning the Zorith not to be foolish, others secretly hoping the humans would fall so their own fear could fade. But none moved to stop them. They wanted to see. They wanted to know. And so, as the galaxy held its breath, the Zorith fired. A storm of plasma bolts, beams of energy, and guided warheads filled the void, a wave so massive it turned the battlefield into blinding light. The blasts struck the human warship directly, exploding across its hull, flames bursting into the darkness, shockwaves rattling nearby fleets. Alien soldiers cheered, convinced they had destroyed the intruder. The Zorith roared in victory, their voices echoing through the comms. But then the light cleared. And the cheering stopped. The human warship still stood. Not a single mark had been left upon its armor. The plasma had washed over it like rain on stone. The beams had scattered, breaking apart as if swallowed by the void itself. The warheads had exploded, but their fire had curved around the hull, as if pushed away by some unseen shield. The ship was untouched, still silent, still calm, still waiting. Panic spread like wildfire. Crews across alien ships stared at their screens, mouths open, hands shaking. Generals barked orders in disbelief, demanding second scans, third scans, anything to explain what they had just seen. The Valen machines reported strange energy bending the laws of physics, energy they could not classify, energy that should not even exist. The Kryvax swarm hissed in terror, wings buzzing uncontrollably. Even the arrogant Zorith soldiers who moments before had shouted victory now whispered in fear. Impossible, General Koroth growled, his voice trembling with fury. No armor can resist that. No shield can bend plasma. What trick is this? But deep inside, even Koroth felt the truth. This was no trick. This was power. Pure, overwhelming power. The human warship had allowed itself to be struck. Not because it was weak, but because it wanted the galaxy to see. It wanted them to fire first, to reveal their arrogance. And now the message was clear: humanity did not fear the greatest weapons of the galaxy. Still the warship did not fire back. Its cannons remained silent, its engines still glowing calm blue, its voice quiet. The only sound was the echo of its first message in the minds of all who watched. We are only here once. Choose wisely. The Zorith general shouted again for his fleet to continue firing, but his soldiers hesitated. Their claws hovered over controls, their eyes wide with terror. They had seen their best weapons vanish into nothing, their pride turned to ash. To fire again felt like suicide. Across the battlefield, other empires whispered among themselves. Some felt pity for the Zorith. Others felt joy at their humiliation. But most felt fear, because if the Zorith's fury could do nothing, then what chance did anyone else have? Still the warship waited, unbroken, unmoved. The galaxy stared in silence once more, realizing that the first move had been made, and it had failed. Humanity had not spoken again, but their answer was louder than words. One ship against thousands, and still standing. And in that moment the galaxy understood. The next move would not be theirs to make. The Zorith attack had failed, their mighty weapons scattering like sparks against a storm, and now the battlefield was drowned in silence once again. But this silence was different, heavier, sharper, as if the void itself was holding its breath. Every eye, every sensor, every watcher across the galaxy stared at the human warship, waiting for its response. The empires wondered if the humans would remain silent forever, or if they would finally unleash what they carried within. Some prayed that the ship would turn and leave, sparing them from a truth they did not wish to face. Others feared that staying silent any longer would only make the humans' strike more terrible when it came. And then it happened. Without warning, the surface of the warship shifted. Strange panels along its hull opened, not like any weapon ports known to alien science, but like wounds in the metal itself, glowing with a light that was not fire, not plasma, not any energy seen before. It was something deeper, older, rawer. Alien scanners screamed with alarms, their systems unable to measure the energy. The Valen machines stuttered, their logic cores breaking under the impossible numbers. Even the Kryvax swarm froze, their instincts screaming danger louder than thought. The galaxy trembled as the human ship finally moved. One blast, not many. One line of light, sharp and silent, erupted from the warship. It was not loud, it was not messy, it was not fire. It was clean, precise, and final. The beam cut across the void, and in a single instant, the Zorath flagship, the pride of their empire, the throne of General Koroth himself, vanished. There was no explosion, no debris, no cry of death. The ship simply ceased to exist, erased as though it had never been. Where it had floated a second before, there was now only empty space, cold and endless. Across the battlefield, fleets gasped in horror. The Zorath soldiers who had cheered now fell into silence, their voices caught in their throats. The Kryvax hissed in disbelief, their wings folding tight. The Valen machines reported the impossible, target destruction complete. Probability of survival, 0. Cause, unknown. Panic spread like fire. Commanders shouted orders, soldiers screamed into their comms, civilians watching from distant worlds fell to their knees. The galaxy had just seen the most feared empire lose its crown jewel in a single breath, destroyed not by a fleet, not by a war, but by one human ship, one human strike. And still the warship did not move. Its hull closed again, the glowing wounds vanishing as if nothing had happened. It floated calmly, silent once more, as if asking the galaxy, who is next? The empires were shaken to their core. Never before had such power been displayed with such little effort. Some fleets began to retreat, engines burning as they fled the battlefield, too terrified to stay another second. Others remained frozen, trapped between pride and fear, unsure if moving at all would bring the same fate as the Zorath. The Kryvax elder whispered through the private channel once more, his voice trembling like dry leaves in the wind. You see now. They gave us a choice. They gave us a warning. And the Zorath chose foolishly. Now they are gone. His words spread like poison, filling every commander with dread. For the first time, they truly believed the warnings of the past. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not lost. Humanity was something else entirely, something that had waited in silence, hidden its strength, and chosen this moment to show the truth. On worlds across the galaxy, the message spread faster than light. A human warship had destroyed the Zorath flagship with a single strike. Panic turned to chaos in many empires. Some called for surrender to humanity before it was too late. Others shouted for war, believing only a united galaxy could stand against such power. But none of them moved against the warship, not now, not after what they had just seen. Still the human vessel spoke no words, offered no demands. It remained a silent shadow in the void, calm as if nothing had happened. And that silence was more terrifying than the strike itself. Because silence meant choice. Silence meant the humans were still watching, still waiting to see what the galaxy would do next. And the galaxy knew one thing with absolute certainty: the humans would not need to strike twice. The destruction of the Zorath flagship spread across the galaxy faster than light, carried by every channel, every whisper, every frightened report. In less than an hour, the image of the mighty ship vanishing into nothing played on screens in every world, replayed again and again until no one could deny what had happened. Fear gripped the hearts of billions. On planets under Zorith rule, citizens who once trembled under their generals now stared in disbelief, whispering that their conquerors were not invincible after all. On distant trading hubs, merchants dropped their goods and fled, markets collapsing as rumors of human power shook the economy. Priests in holy temples declared the arrival of judgment, while smugglers in dark stations swore never to cross a human path. Even children spoke the words in the streets, repeating the phrase burned into their minds, "We are only here once. Choose wisely." In the halls of power, panic turned to madness. The Kryvax swarm called emergency meetings, their leaders clashing with one another, some demanding surrender to humanity, others insisting that the swarm must gather every ship and strike first before the humans unleashed more weapons. Their hissing arguments echoed through the swarm worlds, the sound of wings beating in fear. The Valen collective split into fragments, half their machine minds running endless calculations to understand the impossible strike, while the other half repeated a single cold line, survival probability against humans, near zero. Civilizations that had never known fear now trembled in their metal shells. The smaller empires, once proud and greedy, now sent secret messengers across the stars, begging for peace with humanity, offering resources, worlds, anything if only the humans would not turn their eyes toward them. And still, at the center of it all, the human warship remained silent, floating calmly in the battlefield where thousands of fleets still stood frozen. Some began to retreat, slipping away into the darkness, their captains unwilling to risk the fate of the Zorith. Others stayed, too proud to flee, but too afraid to move. Across the galaxy, stories from the past were brought out from hidden archives. Old logs once mocked, were now studied again with desperate eyes. They spoke of humans who fought impossible wars, humans who survived battles they should never have won, humans who turned despair into victory. These stories, dismissed as myths, now felt like truth. Leaders who had once laughed at them now trembled, realizing they had ignored warnings for centuries. On a mining colony at the edge of the stars, an old man remembered fighting humans long ago when his people had tried to invade a small outpost. He told the children how humans did not fight like others, how they never surrendered, how they turned even broken machines into weapons. His voice shook as he watched the news of the warship, and he whispered, I told them humans should be left alone." On another world, a council of scholars studied the strike that erased the Zorith flagship. They argued for hours, trying to explain the science, but every attempt failed. No theory could match what had been seen. Finally one scholar stood, his eyes hollow. "This is not technology," he said. "This is something else. Something beyond us." And no one disagreed. Meanwhile, in the shadows of the galaxy, rebellions rose. Races long enslaved by empires like the Zorith and Kryvax lifted their heads, hope burning in their hearts. If one human ship could destroy a mighty empire's flagship, then perhaps their masters were not gods but fragile tyrants after all. The balance of power was breaking, and the galaxy knew it. Yet through all the fear, one question echoed louder than any other. What did the humans want? They had not spoken again. They had not asked for surrender, for territory, for treasure. They had not demanded respect or threatened conquest. They had simply arrived, destroyed the Zorith leader, and fallen silent. That silence was worse than war, because no one knew what it meant. Did the humans plan to leave? Did they plan to return with more ships? Were they judging the galaxy from afar? Entire governments collapsed under the weight of this question, leaders unable to decide if they should prepare armies or send envoys. And still, the warship waited, a shadow in the void, its engines glowing softly, its weapons hidden but undeniable. The galaxy stared with wide eyes, every fleet, every world, every mind trapped in fear of the unknown. And deep inside, they all understood one truth. The humans had shown only a glimpse of their power, and even that glimpse was enough to shake the stars themselves. The galaxy held its breath as the human warship floated silently among the shattered pride of empires, and no one dared to act, no one dared to speak. The Zorith were broken, their flagship erased, their fleets trembling and scattered, but still the humans had not moved again. This silence stretched into hours, and every second of it was like a blade pressed against the throats of the galaxy. Then, when fear was at its highest, the human warship finally spoke. The signal was not long, not complex, not wrapped in riddles. It was clear, sharp, and delivered in the common galactic tongue so that no one could misunderstand. We are not here to conquer. We are not here to rule. We are here to remind you. Never touch Earth. The words rippled through the void like thunder. At first there was disbelief, confusion, shock. Conquerors expected demands of surrender, overlords expected terms of peace, tyrants expected tribute. But the humans asked for none of these things. They asked only for distance, only for one law, that Earth be left alone. The fleets murmured in panic. Commanders looked at one another in silence, uncertain how to answer. The Kryvax swarm hissed uneasily, their instincts unsettled. They destroy fleets and empires, yet they do not claim our worlds? What kind of power does not hunger? The Valen machines processed the words again and again, searching for hidden meaning, unable to understand why such a strong species would not seize the galaxy for itself. But some understood. The Kryvax elder whispered to his swarm, "Do you not see? That is the difference. They do not want the stars. They only want their home. And for it, they will burn the stars if they must." His words spread like fire across the comms, and fear turned into awe. On distant worlds, citizens fell silent as the human message reached their screens. Some wept in relief, thinking the humans would not invade. Others trembled more than before, realizing the humans had power but no need to use it. Power without hunger was far more terrifying than any empire's greed. In the council chambers of great empires, leaders argued furiously. Some said to ignore the warning, to test the humans and see if they truly meant their words. Others said to bow, to change every law, to keep Earth hidden from every plan forever. Old stories returned, tales of humans who fought like demons when their homes were threatened, humans who cared less for conquest and more for survival. Now those tales made sense. The warship had not come to enslave or to conquer. It had come to warn, to make the galaxy remember a simple rule. Earth was not to be touched. Still, many leaders trembled with questions. Why now? Why here? Why reveal such power after centuries of silence? Some believed it was a test, that the humans had watched the galaxy grow arrogant and cruel, and now they had chosen to reveal themselves as a reminder that no empire was eternal. Others believed it was only a beginning, that this one ship was a messenger, and behind it waited a fleet so vast no star map could hold it. Fear and speculation burned like firestorms across every world, and yet the human ship did not explain further. It had said its words, and now it waited again, calm, cold, unshaken. The Kryvax elder's voice echoed one more time, low but certain. "We have been given a choice. They will not speak again. If we are wise, we will listen. If we are foolish, we will vanish as the Zorath have vanished." His words left the fleets shivering. Never before had such simple sentences carried so much weight. Never before had silence after words been so heavy. The true purpose of the humans was revealed, and it was not conquest but protection, not hunger but warning. And yet that purpose was more terrifying than war, for it meant that humanity would unleash its fury not for gain, but for defense. And there was no greater force in the galaxy than a species that fought not for power, but for home. The galaxy watched as the human warship floated like a shadow in the void, its message still echoing across every channel, every fleet, every trembling empire. No demands, no conquest, no chains, only a warning that Earth was never to be touched. For days, silence ruled the stars, broken only by whispers, arguments, and frightened orders. Some fleets pulled back quietly, retreating into the darkness, unwilling to risk human wrath. Others stayed frozen, their captains unable to decide whether leaving would be seen as defiance or submission. And through it all, the warship remained still, unmoving, silent, as if daring the galaxy to test its words. On the Zorath homeworld, chaos consumed the rulers who had once called themselves eternal. The image of their flagship's destruction was played endlessly until their people demanded answers. Soldiers refused to obey, generals turned on one another, and whispers of rebellion spread. The empire that had enslaved countless worlds was breaking apart, not under war, but under fear. On the Kryvax swarm worlds, hives quivered with uncertainty. Their instincts screamed to strike first, to overwhelm the humans before more ships appeared, but the memory of the flagship's instant destruction held them back. No swarm dared to move, no hive dared to launch, for every wing beat carried the weight of fear. In the Valen Collective, machine minds repeated calculations until processors burned, yet every equation led to the same conclusion: survival against humans equaled 0. Entire networks shut down in despair, leaving silent cities where only machines had lived. Smaller empires, once arrogant and greedy, now scrambled to send envoys, gifts, and desperate promises of neutrality. They swore to stay away from Earth, to erase its coordinates from every archive, to teach their children never to speak the name of humanity's homeworld. Rebellions rose in corners of the galaxy, enslaved peoples daring to lift their heads, whispering that if humans could break the mighty Zorith, then maybe freedom was no longer impossible. For the first time in centuries, the oppressed believed in hope, and the oppressors trembled. And still, the human warship waited, its engines glowing faintly, its weapons hidden but undeniable. Then, after days of silence, the warship moved. Slowly, with a grace that froze every heart, it turned away from the battlefield. No words followed, no threats, no promises, only silence as it drifted into the void. The galaxy stared in disbelief. Was it leaving? Was this the end? Or was it only the beginning? For hours they watched, fleets holding position, weapons trembling in nervous hands. Then, with a burst of light, the warship vanished into the endless dark, its signal gone, its presence erased as if it had never been there at all. Silence followed. A silence deeper than any before. It was not the silence of peace, nor the silence of victory, but the silence of judgment. The galaxy had been shown a glimpse of power beyond measure, and then that power had walked away. The lesson was clear, the choice already given: Earth was not to be touched. Across the stars, leaders collapsed into their seats, shaken beyond measure. Some wept in relief, others in terror, all knowing that the galaxy would never be the same again. On distant colonies, children asked their parents why the humans had left, and the parents had no answers. On conquered worlds, prisoners looked to the skies with hope, waiting for the day the humans might return. On great capitals, rulers sat in silence, haunted by the knowledge that they had been spared, not defeated. The warship's silence was heavier than war, because it left the galaxy to decide its own fate. No one knew if the humans would ever return. No one knew how many ships they had, or how long they had been watching. But everyone knew one truth that could never be forgotten: humanity had the power to break empires, to crush fleets, to erase rulers, and yet they had walked away without claiming a single star. That restraint was more terrifying than any weapon, because it meant humanity's strength was not born of greed, but of purpose. And if that purpose was ever threatened again, the galaxy knew what would follow. As the days turned to weeks, whispers spread like fire. The humans had shown their power, the humans had left their warning, and the humans had vanished back into the void. But their silence remained, a silence that would echo for centuries, a silence that would haunt every throne, every fleet, every council. And in that silence, the galaxy finally understood the truth. The most dangerous enemy is not the one who wants to conquer you, but the one who wants nothing from you except to be left alone. The final silence of the human warship was not peace, it was not war, it was a reminder written across the stars, and no one would ever forget it.